Hello, hello, my loves, and welcome to Flow, a live series for women with feminine health issues. I'm your wellness coach, author, and speaker, Coach Anna, here to help you feel better, balance your mood, and boost your energy. In today's episode, I have the creator of Black Girls Heal, a podcast and coaching program for women who really need help healing from love avoidance and love addiction, joining us. Shena is a friend from college, so we go way back. And she's also a formerly trained therapist who's been in the healing space for over 12 years. So much to add, so much wisdom, so much experience. Thank you so much for joining me today, Sheena.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me on.
I'm so excited about this conversation. I love your platform. I love what you offer. So I'm so excited to be able to offer this information because I feel like it's a conversation that we absolutely need to have. So, will you start us off by telling us a little bit about your platform?
Yeah, so Black Girls Heal is a platform that's built for women, like you said, who struggle with love addiction, love avoidance. So, women who consistently, no matter whether or not they're functioning very well in their corporate space, in their jobs, in their careers, when it comes to relationships, there's always a block. And what I have found in my own personal journey and also in my work with women is that is not due to lack of education, is not due to lack of access to skills and relationship tips, but is that we're replaying childhood trauma in our adult lives. And so it really is about learning how to heal the wounds that are within and also relearning how to interact and let people in or keep people out, depending on how it's showing up for you to find the right balance.
Wow, that is so true. I love the piece about regardless of how they're operating or successful in other aspects of their lives, like balancing that out in their love lives and in their relationship, which is so important, right? When you think about health, when you think about happiness, when you think about balance, it's about finding that balance in all areas of your life. And relationships are so, so, so important. I
Mhm.
think so many of us are trying to find happiness, if you will, in our outer selves with food, with relationships. On your website, you say self medicating by using partnerships, work accomplishments, dressing up, vacations. I know that I have to check myself and check my patterns. I think for me, I had to learn that my self medicating was decorating and cleaning. Like I would find a project to make me feel better.
Right.
Do you think that this programming, right, these behaviors, do you think that this is something that we learn to do?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. There's no pleasure is not a sin. So
Mhm.
enjoying a pretty space, going on a nice trip, looking good, taking pleasure in that, those are all good things. When we use them as coping mechanisms to hide from pain that we don't know how to manage, when we use it to a place where it doesn't matter how much of those things we have, we still feel empty, we don't feel enough, that we use it to excess even though there's consequences there, that's when we have to stop and say, okay, what's going on here? What is my real intention in doing this? Is it because I like it, or is it because I like it and I'm trying to fix something I'm not talking about?
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. I love the coping mechanism aspect of it, and I
Mhm.
think that takes some self-reflection and some self-work. How do you get to a space where you're able to dive into that self-reflection? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you have to get quiet and you have to get still, and
Mhm.
sometimes when we're coping, we keep ourselves busy with all of these things, so we don't hear that inner voice, but
Right.
how do you get to a place where you're able to dive into that self-reflection?
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, they get to a place where they're doing all the right things that they know to do on paper. So maybe they're going to the yoga classes, maybe they're talking to people, maybe they're reading all the books, they're trying to take time out for themselves, but they still keep having the same issues. And so at that point, you kind of have to look at, all right, there might be something that I'm missing. I think for some people, it is an intentional avoidance. And I think for some people, they're using all the tools they know how to use, but they might not be the right tools.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And everything that you have in your toolbox, you're trying it, right? Like you said, the yoga, praying, getting into quiet time, like these are the tools that you have, but sometimes you need to seek some outside resources.
Right.
I know that you heal and speak and train from experience. Do you mind sharing a little bit of your journey?
Yeah, yeah. So, yes, I talk a lot about my story because I think I think before I had the terms love addiction and love avoidance, I always thought that there was something uniquely wrong with me because I've been blessed enough to have really great friendships, really great experiences, success in my career. But like I kind of said in the intro, my romantic relationships would kind of be off. I didn't know it was codependency in my family, but as I started my healing journey, I was like, oh, is that what that is? But
Yeah.
before I had those terms, I felt like there was something that I was missing. But then I realized after I learned about love addiction, which is the persistent obsession of a person, a relationship, or the fantasy of a person, like what you want them to be, and mistaking that passion, that obsession, that intensity for love. When really you're attaching to that person because they're representing something from your past that you're trying to
Mm,
resolve. So I had a series of connections and relationships, and I found that they were starting to get deeper. That even though I was having experiences that I could think logically, that doesn't work for me, the next relationship would be like that or worse. And I was like, okay, I am crossing boundaries. I'm not actually moving forward. If
yeah.
anything, I'm starting to settle a little bit more. So from there, I was able to start to
Mm.
learn more about this issue.
So patterns. It sounds like you recognized patterns in your relationships and realized that you wanted more. And codependency is real. I think especially for women of color, especially in our families, considering the roles that we've always historically had to play, right?
Mhm.
In our families, for our families, right? We are the strong Black woman. Do you feel like our historical landscape in America, right? The trauma that we've experienced as women of color in America adds to this issue?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why I actually transitioned to Black Girls Heal. So before, I had a platform called Love Junkie, and I talked about love and sex addiction for everybody, men, women,
Mm,
all races. And as I built my therapy practice on love addiction, I have more Black women coming into my office. I was like, we need some resources that actually talk about the intersection of all the different ways we are oppressed and that we face injustice and the things that
mhm.
happen in our families that
Yeah,
we learn and that we mimic and that we don't know how to break in our romantic lives and our friendships and our families, right? And so I couldn't find any resources for us, which is why I created Black Girls Heal. But absolutely, we to repeat what you said earlier, we don't know what we don't know, and we live the best that we know how with what we've been seeing. So we have generations of people who, due to slavery, due to mass incarceration, due to systemic oppression, have been coping with all of this pain. That has created a lot of brokenness, and there's a lot of separation. There's a lot of things that we carry that's actually pain from grandparents and mothers and great grandparents. And we really have to shift through that to say, okay, that might have been their story, but is this a story that I want to create? Is this a
yeah,
legacy that I want to pass down to others? And
yeah.
even though it's different, even though it's something I've never experienced before, is it something that I feel brave enough to move into, to relearn?
Mm, you said
Because
so much. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, just because, especially, we're both moms, right? And
Yeah,
even in parenting, there are all these rules as far as what we're supposed to be as Black parents, and how we're supposed to run our household and what are the said and unsaid rules. And a lot of those things are abusive. A lot of those things are what creates a lot of
yeah,
self-esteem issues, is why suicidal ideations and attempts are so high in Black men, and all the depression and stress and anxiety that Black women we hold by having to hold everything on our shoulders. And so
yeah,
as a parent, it's like, okay, as a new parent, it's like, well, do I do what I saw other people do? And do I do what a lot of people in my community think I should do as a parent? Or do I create my own path, even if it's not popular,
yeah. Even if it looks a little different.
even if it looks a little different? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you like I feel like that's just like a snap moment. Um, you said so much, right? And I feel like these programs and these systems and these ideas, you said it yourself, right? It started with our great grandmothers and then our grandmothers and our mothers, and it's the only thing that they've ever known. And
Right.
so we learned it, and it becomes the only thing that we know. So then you have this generational trauma because not, yes, it's ingrained in us, right, to a degree, but then also because it's traditional. We do what we saw, we do what we learn, and sometimes I think it's all that we know.
Mhm.
So having the wherewithal, the courage, like you said, the bravery to do something different and move past that programming, move past that mindset. I like to say that every family has a unicorn, right? Every family has that one person who's born, who's built to break the generational curses. And it's usually that one that's doing something a little different, eating differently, raising their children differently, maybe in therapy, loving differently, right? Like you're called to be that one to shift things. And I think it starts with conversations like this. And when I think about it, I don't know that these are conversations that our mothers and our grandmothers had the luxury or even really the resources and the tools to have.
Yeah.
We're moving into a space, I think, collectively as women of color, where we're elevating spiritually, we're elevating mentally, we're elevating physically, and we're
Mhm.
able to do the work that we deserve to really live a full life.
Right.
And it may look a lot differently than what we grew up in and what we know.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I chose an alternative birth. So I did a water birth with doulas outside of the hospital, and just the conversation and the education that I had to have with my family members and those around me and prep them for what it would look like
Mhm.
um, was a little bit nerve-wracking, to be honest, right? But it took that courage and it took that bravery to say, this is what I'm doing, this is why, these are my boundaries, which
Mm.
I don't think Black women, considering what we learned, are always comfortable saying, this is my truth and these are my boundaries, right?
Mhm.
But the work is really a road, if you think about it. It's a road to our healthiest and our happiest selves. And I'm really just thankful for women like you who are leading this space and leading these conversations.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate that. And I think that's beautiful that you have, I mean, even with the platform you've created here, how you have been educating yourself through food, through holistic health, through all the things again that we are not taught, and you're sharing your message with people as well, and creating that path for us. So thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It is what I love. And so I'm like, I can talk about vegetables all day. Let's do it. All day, all day, all
Yeah.
day. So okay, you are what you attract, right? You attract where your foundation is. You attract what you think. You attract what you feel. You attract what you feel you're worth.
Mm.
Um, and your level of self worth, your emotional foundation attracts your partner. What are
Mm.
some ways that we can start to move past trauma to elevate, heal, and attract something different? I think you spoke to patterns. So, what are
Mhm.
some ways that we can elevate past trauma to break some of those patterns?
Yeah. So looking at your relationship history is probably foundational. So, who are the type of people I have traditionally been in relationships with? The whys. The whys looking like, what was it that they gave me that I felt